Confession time. I love 2D metroidvanias and souls-like games more for the exploration than the combat. Especially well-designed metroidvanias with their ability-gated map design pique some kind of primal curiosity in me that drives me to suffer through platforming challenges that I'm inherently bad at, or combat scenarios that I'm also inherently bad at. Grime has been sitting on my Epic Games library for some time. The only thing I knew about it is that it is a Souls-like Metroidvania, aka souls-vania, so I thought of giving it a try. To my surprise, it not only blew me away, but also made me want to blow it.
'Cause you're gay?
No, because it gave me that rare kind of feeling of wonder and discovery that Dark Souls 1 had given me when I first played it.
Chills. Literal chills.
I mentioned in my previous video reviewing another Metroidvania, Constance, that to me, what matters most in games of this genre are combat, exploration, unlockable abilities, and how these things synergize. That last part is perhaps the most important, as I feel that particularly in this genre, a lack of synergy between these three pillars absolutely ruins the experience. I'm not exaggerating, but by far, to me, Grime is the best side-scrolling Metroidvania Souls-like, aka souls-vania, with the most synergy among its mechanisms and the most consistency of quality from beginning to end.
Oh, interesting.
The game begins in the most cliché way possible, something we've seen a million times in other games of the genre, the protagonist dropping down from some incredible height. Then the first thing you learn is the absorb mechanism, the central pillar of the game. It works like a parry, meaning you have to time it right and press the button when an enemy strike is about to hit you, which starts this satisfying animation of you sucking the soul out of them, which then turns it into breath, the only healing resource of the game. Well, later, you can find these secret crystal enemies and chase them down to get this thing called Thin Nacre, and collecting every 3 of these gives you 1 healing item which regenerates every time you respawn, but it's kind of optional and doesn't fill up a significant amount of your health bar, so we are going to simply ignore it. So, since breath is your primary way of healing, absorbing enemies is kind of essential for your survival. Luckily, the parry window is pretty generous, and enemies have very clear telegraphs, so it's easy to learn and execute. Not only enemy strikes, you can also parry projectiles and even some environmental weapons, further portraying the central role the absorb mechanism plays in this game. But wait, there's more. Absorbing enemies also increases your Ardor, which I think is a brilliant evolution of the Souls-like formula.
So let me explain.
On the surface, Grime has pretty much every Souls thing in it. Discoverable checkpoints where you respawn every time you die along with all the enemies, stamina-based, slow and deliberate combat and a sense of weight in the weapons, armor sets that boost different stats allowing build varieties, tough but fair boss fights, intricate intertwined levels with many secrets and shortcuts to discover, a cryptic story that is hard to unravel, NPCs who talk in riddles, and mass. Basically, souls, which you get by defeating enemies. You can use mass to increase your stats, buy items, or upgrade weapons, exactly like other Souls-likes. Now, you would imagine that just like other Souls-likes, if you died, you would drop all your mass on the spot of your demise, and if you can't recover them before dying again, you will lose it all. But in Grime, that doesn't happen.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
While the corpse run mechanism in Souls-likes primarily teaches you to be careful and deliberate in your actions and gives you a sense of thrill and suspense by making death very costly, but at times this fails because most games in this genre are really hard, and repeatedly dying and then losing all your currency often end up making you afraid to explore an unknown area further, especially if you're running low on health. Grime solves this problem by not making you lose your mass when you die, but rather making you lose your Ardor. Ardor is this number that kind of works like a multiplier, which determines how much mass you get by killing an enemy. The higher your Ardor, the more mass you can gain, thus the quicker you can level up or upgrade your weapons, etc. You increase your Ardor every time you crush or absorb an enemy, but you also lose a little bit of it every time you take damage. When you are killed, your Ardor goes back to 0, but similar to Corpse Run, if you can get back to the spot where you died and break this ghost that you left behind, you gain half of the Ardor. So when you die, since you don't lose your actual currency mass, but rather the multiplier, you can easily choose to not go back to the same risky spot to try and recover your dropped statue, but rather try other areas areas and on the way accumulate Ardor by killing or absorbing enemies anyway. You can only gain Ardor up to 100, and if you're any good at surviving, getting to a large Ardor number doesn't take long. Also, I bet it is absolutely possible to never recover Ardor and build it anew every time you die and still upgrade your stats and weapons enough to be able to finish the game. This makes death much less frustrating, allowing you to pursue your curiosity and explore anywhere you want, instead of being tied to retrieving your corpse if you die while exploring. And the game makes sure you will be curious to explore by making its level design fantastically dense. Pretty much any given time, except around the very end of the game, you will have multiple paths you can explore, meaning there will virtually be no hour of gameplay where you would not make any actual progress, which is a statement that cannot be said about many Souls-likes. If you're stuck on a boss, an area with tough enemies, or lack the ability to traverse through an area, or simply can't think of a solution to a puzzle, you will surely have other areas you can explore before coming back and trying again.
Ball's in your court, hero.
I can't stress enough how well done the level design in this game is. It has a gigantic map that keeps growing and growing, and every area is packed with well-designed enemy encounters, platforming challenges, bosses, mini-bosses, puzzles, shortcuts, and secret areas. Lots and lots of secret areas. Each named location has its own distinct visual identity, but at the same time, the game itself has a very unique visual identity that, admittedly, at first kind of put me off due to how slimy, wet, and just dirty it looked. But the more I played the game, the more I appreciated its visuals that are deliberately designed to evoke a sense of 90s graphics.
Man, those were good days.
I have complained about Silksong in a bunch of my previous videos, and I guess since this is a review of a game from the same genre, another Silksong rant is due. Please skip to this timestamp if you want to skip it.
No, keep it up.
While I am admittedly worse in platforming than perhaps even an average casual gamer, Silksong's platforming at times, well I guess most times, felt excessively punishing to me.
That's because you're a loser.
And that's not just me. Even a lot of platforming veterans have expressed similar feelings. Especially in areas like Bilewater, the purpose of the platforming to me felt more like an exercise in sadism on the developer's part.
Oh man, I know how you feel.
So, when eventually at some point I was able to overcome them, I felt like I just somehow got lucky by mashing buttons. And almost never did I feel a sense of mastery over the mechanics, which I think should be the desired effect of any challenge in a video game.
Come on, think about that.
FromSoft games, and especially Sekiro for example, makes you feel pretty miserable at first because you don't know how to parry. But as you master the art of it while you keep playing, you not only feel a true sense of accomplishment, but you also start looking forward to more challenges. Silksong, sadly for me, leaves very little opportunity to feel this sense of mastery in either its combat or especially platforming. By the time I finished the game, I didn't feel like I gained much mastery over its mechanics than when I started. Rather, it constantly made me so miserable and frustrated that when I finally overcame a combat or platforming hurdle, instead of feeling a sense of fulfillment, I just felt like,
Thank you!
Grime's platforming, in my opinion, strikes that elusive perfect balance between being difficult and delivering the satisfaction of mastering a skill. It has ridiculously long platforming gauntlets where often failure means you must start from the very beginning again. It could get tough, yes, but at no point did the platforming in this game made me feel like it's impossible to overcome, or that I don't know what I'm doing. The game makes sure you understand the mechanisms well and tests your reflexes and mastery of juggling between multiple traversal abilities in a way that every failure feels like a learning experience rather than pure helplessness. If you succeed in overcoming a platforming challenge, you will immediately feel confident enough to say,
"We should do this again sometime."
As someone who is terrified of platforming and had passed on highly rated games simply because they are said to have tough jumpy sections, Grime made me look forward to conquering its platforming zones and made me enjoy them for a change.
I like it.
In the spirit of synergizing between its mechanisms, the level design complements the platforming and combat scenarios quite well. Unlike most modern 2D souls-vanias, it doesn't really have any side quest, therefore no special quest critical item to find. The only items you need to find for the main quest is marked on the map for you. So very early in the game you realize that all the items that you will find throughout would merely be consumable resources that would aid you in combat, healing, or upgrading your weapons. I almost never use consumable items in combat in games like this. Even in this game I only use them during the final boss. So I knew that my curiosity to explore every corner of this map was not driven by a quest to gather resources, but by the mere fact that the world of the game is designed so compellingly that I couldn't help wanting to see everything.
I got to know.
And it is due to the carefully crafted map that tends to tease you with a glimpse of a locked area, an item placed at an apparently inaccessible location, etc., that you constantly keep feeling that primal curiosity to find out what's there and how to go there. Many times the map sends you to a seemingly uncharted area only to loop back to a familiar place via a secret pathway or a shortcut that makes this ultra satisfying click in your brain that is extremely rare to find in most games.
This really feels wonderful. I think I'm gonna come.
It implements the Hollow Knight-like feature of having to find an area's map before it shows up on the map screen by using the Ubisoft-style tower discovery type thing that makes the map visible on the pause menu. But these beacons are carefully placed in rooms that you can only access after you've done some blind exploration around the area, forcing you to mentally map it out first. Especially in the second half of the game, these beacons are found so deep in an area that by the time you reach them, you would have made a very clear mental picture of the area anyway. This approach works brilliantly to add a sense of mastery and thus curiosity to the exploration side, and I loved it.
You enjoy the game.
While for me exploration was the king, combat in this game is very fun as well. Just like Dark Souls 1, at first the weapons feel kind of clunky, everything feels too heavy and slow, but soon enough you pick up the rhythm and the satisfaction of the combat system sets in. You find a good selection of weapons throughout your journey, and they are conveniently categorized as very fast, fast, average, slow, and very slow. But unfortunately, I didn't find much incentive coming from the game for me to try out the variation of weapons, even within the same category. As I do in most Souls-likes, I went for a strength build, which kind of locked me out of using weapons from other categories, and I found this one weapon early on and basically finished the whole game with it, trying out a few other weapons every now and then, only to go back to finding this one to be the most effective. Upon fully upgrading it, the number written beside its power was still bigger than another slow weapon I found much later, which I had also fully upgraded. I feel like the weapon upgrade system could maybe use some overhaul. While the one weapon I used throughout my run felt great to use, and the more I played, the more the timing of the weapon set in my muscle memory, I would have loved to be incentivized to try out different weapons.
Well, okay, I see your point.
After killing a certain enemy a certain number of times, you unlock their trait, which are perks you can enhance by spending hunt points that you acquire by killing mini-bosses scattered all around. Most of these perks strengthen you in meaningful ways that gives you a sense of real growth the more you invest on them. Also, the perks needing a specific resource, the hunt point, makes mini-bosses more meaningful, and therefore makes you want to engage with them, even though most, if not all of them, are optional and you could choose to avoid them entirely. In fact, you could choose to not engage with this trait feature altogether. Even I only used a handful of them, but by making them truly useful all the while totally optional, the game gives the player a real choice, which I liked a lot. Whether you decide to engage with the mini-bosses or not, although I certainly did because fighting them was a lot of fun, I'm confident that you would love to engage with the bosses. I found pretty much every single one of the boss fights to be very satisfying. Yes, some of them are a bit too easy, but none of them felt cheap or thoughtless, and I thoroughly enjoyed the variation found in both the visuals and mechanisms of the bosses. The game demands you be observant of the boss's attack pattern and be deliberate with your slow attacks, but the learning process you have to go through before you attain mastery over them is very enjoyable because of how the parry system and especially this pull mechanism that you unlock at the earlier part of the game are implemented within the boss combats. Once you learn a boss's behavior by trying them out a few times, the fights become kind of a rhythmic dance, and you find yourself in a satisfying flow state where you feel like you have a reply for every question the boss sends your way. The last time I felt this kind of rhythmic fun in boss fights was in Sekiro and 9 Souls. And well, I must admit, despite my constant bitching about the game, some bosses of Silksong did give me this satisfaction after all.
That's right.
Even though I was very thorough and took my time exploring each area, it took me just around 20 hours to complete the game. I'd imagine if you ignore most optional areas and bosses, you'll be able to complete the game in about 12 hours. In that sense, it is much shorter than games of similar type, but I would much rather take a shorter game like this that does this many things right than a longer, bigger scaled game that only makes you feel miserable.
You enjoy the game.
I realized even though I had set out to review this game in this video, it kind of turned out to be a love letter. But well, I really don't have much negatives to say about this game.
What are you, an ass-kissing machine?
Okay, I do have 2 complaints. First one is something I have been complaining about a lot in my other reviews of recent metroidvanias, and just like those, this game too gives you the double jump ability very late. In fact, in this game, double jump is the last ability you get, and as usual, I think that is objectively wrong.
This was such a dumb idea.
While sure, after you attain double jump very late in the game, you can go back and discover new areas and reach new heights, but by the time these games give you this ability, you are at the point where you are mentally expecting to be done with the game. So you feel kind of worn out, and the incentive to go around the whole map looking to utilize double jump just vanishes in most cases.
And he's got a point.
So yeah, I did hate the fact that double jump is the last ability you get here, and there was very little meaningful thing to do with this ability. I truly hope they give you double jump and air dash earlier in the sequel.
Because you know I'm right, and you know you are wrong!
But the one thing about the game I really hated and was kind of baffled by was the UI of the fast travel system. Once you unlock it, you can warp from any checkpoint to other checkpoints by this warp menu. Problem is, it is often hard to guess which checkpoint you'll actually warp to simply by looking at the name of the checkpoint. The little picture with the name doesn't help much. I was quite baffled by this because the map screen in this game is quite detailed, so I don't know why they couldn't simply use the tried and tested classic method of letting me choose my destination from the actual map itself.
Because... shut up.
In conclusion, if you've made it this far, you know I love Grime and I believe you would too, so I wholeheartedly recommend it. I think it's the perfect time to play the game right now because the sequel Grime 2 has been announced and its demo is available on Steam right now, which I'm currently playing. I haven't finished it yet, but it is showing promise. I am sure the developers are watching this video, so I hope they will send me a review key before release so I can review it like a professional outlet.
We don't have that kind of relationship.
Anyway, if you played Grime, let me know in the comments what you thought of it. I would love to know. Goodbye, and here is a little joke from the game.